You're listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist. Here at Mind Over Me, I offer an unconventional approach to therapy and mental health in general. The therapy system is misguided and broken. So many people are turning to mental health professionals for help, and they're just not finding it. It's my goal to bring some unconventional means, unconventional views, and maybe some unconventional techniques to helping people find mental wellness. Instead of being dependent on a system or a medication or a professional for mental wellness or mental stability, my goal is to always empower and help people by teaching them how to help themselves. This podcast is about self-efficacy, self-determination, and self-empowerment. Every person needs to find a better connection with themselves. Whether you realize it or not, you are the answer to your problems. You just need better information, and I hope to give it to you. So, thank you for being here. Let's dive in. All right, my friends, welcome back to the next installment of Mind Over Me. I was thinking maybe if I did a little bit of singing in the intro or at the beginning of this, you'd tell all your friends, wow, go listen to that podcast about mental health. Anyways, I hope this episode finds you well. It's tough out there. It is. We have good reasons to be depressed. I stand firmly by that. One of the things that I dislike about the current state of mental health industry, is how it kind of makes it sound like you're not supposed to feel depressed, and if you do, well, you're the problem. I disagree. I'm an outlier. I've gone rogue in regards to being a therapist. I actually think that we have very good reasons to be depressed. Very, very good reasons. I think we are led to believe that our typical lifestyle, the standard American lifestyle, or the SAL, is really depressing, frankly, right? 9 to 5 all day, sitting inside, sedentary, not getting exercise, not getting sunlight, not getting proper nutrition, not having enough close connections with other human beings, not doing enough things to give us purpose and meaning in life, etc., etc., etc. We're going to feel depressed. I think that's how it goes. And so hopefully our goal is to find ways to fix that. It's not easy, but you must do hard things. Doing hard things is very, very important. Let me introduce the topic. I'm actually kind of excited about this topic. I think it's a very, very important topic. I think it's very different. I don't think you're going to hear a whole lot of people talking about this topic. And it kind of roots from sort of a bigger theory or philosophy of mine about how everything good, every virtue is going to have like a cheap, sort of bastardized version of it. And our culture, our modern culture, seems to want to just run after everything that's cheap, everything that's bastardized. It's like, sometimes it just feels like it's a race to the bottom. Sometimes it feels like if you're one of those people who is seeking the real virtue, who's seeking the actual good thing, it's a pretty lonely road. And so the title of this episode is Positive Selfishness. So I'm going to talk about being selfish in a positive way. What? I know that's going to sound like a foreign concept. It's going to require some explaining. We're going to kind of draw it out a bit. You're going to need to zoom out a little bit because I think people will hear a word like selfishness and think it's all bad all the time. There are very, very important and distinct differences here that need to be outlined and noted. So that's going to be the topic of today's episode. The reason why I'm exploring this concept too is because it's really extremely important for people to become selfish in a positive way in at least some regards, for at least certain periods of time in their life, so they can establish themselves, so that they can be a better person, so that they can meet their needs. And because when your needs are not met, you turn into a little bit of a parasite in some regards. All too often, people these days, they look to others to fulfill their needs. It's just a dead-end road. People are not required to fill your needs, and they're not necessarily going to. If they're willing to help you with that, well, that's really nice of them. They're not required to do so. And when we look to them for that and expect them to do that, that's the type of selfishness that can be really harmful and damaging, right? And yes, before this episode is over, I'm going to try and convince you to be selfish in a positive way, and how to do that, what that looks like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is kind of a higher law to me. This is like a higher way of being. Right now, I'm trying to avoid the words "I think." Good friend of mine who listens to the podcast, he gave me some feedback. He's like, don't say "I think" so much. Like, be the expert. And it's like, yeah, I get that. And it's not that I doubt myself, but I also know that my ideas are often different or unique and off the beaten path, to say the least. And I really, really don't want people to just take my word, right? Just for my word. I want people to try things out themselves. I want people to do their own research and try their own behavior experiments, which basically means, right, like, go do something different, try something different, see what you get out of it. Don't just take my word for it. It's not my job to tell people what to do. I think too many people turn to their therapist to be like, tell me what to do. And I think there's too many therapists telling people what to do, wanting to tell people what to do. I don't think that's our place. I really don't. I don't think that's ethical. I don't think that's good treatment. I don't think that's good support. If you ask me, a good therapist always supports self-determination and self-efficacy, which basically means that, like, putting people in the driver's seat of their own life rather than deferring, right, or outsourcing, right, who steers their ship, who serves as their rudder, who tells them where to go. That's your job. It's your job to figure yourself out so that you can be the master of your own destiny. There's kind of an in-depth process to all of that, by the way. People don't trust themselves, but I don't think people should just trust themselves implicitly. I think people need to do a lot of personal work. I think they need to do a lot of emotional work. I think they need to improve their emotional intelligence before they should just blindly trust themselves. Your mind, your emotions are not always going to tell you the truth. Not every thought and feeling that you have is valid. Your mind easily can turn against you, often does. Until you emotionally mature, it's hard to trust yourself, right? That's probably a whole other topic, frankly. Maybe I will map out an outline and make that a future episode, potentially. But before we dive headfirst into positive selfishness, let's cover a couple other things here. One, the first thing I want to talk about is just some of the stuff that's on my mind, stuff that I'm kind of working on right now. Doing my own personal work, being really involved in my own growth is an extremely high priority for me. I've been doing my own self-help work for a long time. I originally set out to do it because I mostly just wanted less pain in my life. And then it just, I don't know, self-empowerment kind of got sort of addicting because it felt so good at certain times. And so I think therapists should be required, though it's not like you can require them. It's not like the government can require them. But I believe that therapists should not get into the social sciences or mental health or whatever if they're not doing their own personal work or dedicated to their own personal growth. A lot of them aren't, believe it or not. A lot of them use this profession as a means to avoid their own issues. And it probably goes without saying, those are not very good therapists. They can't really offer much in terms of direction to help you with your own mental health because their mental health is in shambles, right? That's the nature of the beast. So for me right now, there are several things on my docket right now, just in regards to what I'm facing, or what I'm dealing with, and what I'm working through. But the biggest thing, which frankly, talking about it, I'm not going to lie, gives me a little bit of vulnerability, but I'm not at all worried about it. In fact, I think vulnerability is a good thing. I think we need to, press into it, sort of embrace the process. I am currently kind of getting some health issues sorted out. I have had sort of more than a decade long spree of just health issues, and they have held me back big time. And for a very long time, my health has just become my highest priority. And so I've really kind of fallen behind. I believe that I'm quite far behind professionally. I'm quite far behind in regards to, and I hate this word, I hate the word should. But I would really, so I'm going to avoid saying it. I'm going to see if I can word it. It reminds me of this time, by the way, when years ago, I was in therapy. And the therapist that I had, she was from South Africa. She's a very nice lady, delightful therapist. I really liked her. And I would say but a lot. I would say, yeah, but. And when I would, she would say, Scott, you keep saying but, because it, and she would kind of give this stipulation that when you say but, then you cancel out the thing that you said before it. And so instead of saying but, I started saying however. However, she thought it was funny. Oh, very good, Scott. Anyways, this juncture in time, I don't want to say the word should, but I would like to be much further ahead in my career than I am. And I just haven't had the ability to devote the effort and the focus that I would have liked to have in the last several years, because my health issues have taken up so much of my attention. So right now for me, it's just like daily content creation, daily social media activity, all of that. Yeah, it's burning me out just a little bit, not too bad, but I feel like I just can't afford to dilly-dally any longer, just because health issues were so debilitating for so long. And so right now it's like focus, discipline, and conscientiousness. I kind of talked about this in the previous episode, just being more conscientious about my day-to-day. All these good, virtuous things, by the way, the virtuous things are things that you practice, I have found. Whether it's patience, whether it's happiness, whether it's self-care, whether it's self-compassion, positive self-talk, courage, strength, integrity. I mean, all this stuff. All that stuff requires practice. What I found is that because people are so accustomed to doing the easy things that take virtually no effort, no practicing, nothing, that they seem to think that the good things should just be that easy, be that quick, be that easy. And really, there's a process of like training your brain that the really super, I think I should say super a couple more times, super good stuff is the result of consistency and dedication and just showing up every day. And even when your emotions, because I've been going through this, even when your emotions are like, what's the point? I'm not getting anywhere. This isn't working, right? I'm just doing my best here and getting better and reminding myself, don't think about those thoughts. Don't entertain those thoughts. Forget about those old thoughts and those old emotions. Show up and do it anyways. Frankly, this is an area where I need to mature. I need to do better. So I'm just working on being diligent and consistent and conscientious. I have been able to create more consistency lately, which is why I picked a podcast up again, frankly, because I've been proving to myself that I'm learning to be consistent when it's been a huge struggle of mine in my life. Anyways, so that's a quick rundown of what I'm working on. Before we get into positive selfishness, let's do our shadow work journal prompts for this episode. If you're new here, I'm a big believer in shadow work. If you want to kind of hear more about my thoughts on shadow work, my experiences with shadow work. You may want to listen to the 2 previous episodes. One of them is Shattered Minds. The other one is The Dark Ego. And really quite proud of those episodes. I think, to me, that's really good stuff. That's stuff that's really helped me. You may want to go back and listen to those if you haven't. And I am such a big believer in this thing called shadow work and doing this just deep inner work. You can kind of rewire yourself. So I have decided I'm going to do shadow work journal prompts on every episode. If you want to do your own shadow work, I want to provide a couple of disclaimers. First is, if you've had a lot of trauma and that trauma has had a significant impact on your mental health, and if you just feel really chaotic and very neurotic as a person, shadow work is what you need, but you should proceed with a lot of caution. Be very careful with it. And I talked about this in my previous episode, if you've had a lot of trauma, if you've had your psyche kind of broken up into a ton of fragments and you experience this thing called fragmentation, you're going to want to practice a lot of self-compassion. It's kind of a different topic, but just learning to be compassionate with yourself. My shadow work journal prompts are very high accountability. My shadow work is not for whims. So as a therapist, I do shadow work with clients, and it's good for them. They love it. It's very positive for them. I walk them through it. I notice when they need some self-compassion and all of that. And so without further ado, one more quick disclaimer. I'm a therapist. I am not your therapist. Please proceed with caution. Be discerning. And if you are doing these shadow work journal prompts and you have a therapist, you may want to work with your therapist on them. Okay, sorry about all that. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Here are your shadow work journal prompts. Remember that it's always best to do them in writing. You may want to dedicate a separate notebook or journal just for shadow work. Okay, these shadow work journal prompts are going to gauge your level, your ability to be honest with yourself. So here are the prompts. Okay, number 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your ability to be completely honest with yourself. 10 being absolute tops, absolute max. How is your level of self-honesty? On that one, try to keep in mind that very few people are going to be at a 10. The fact of the matter is we all have blind spots. So I actively do this stuff, and I know that I have blind spots. We all do. It's just the nature of the beast. I would not put myself at a 10. Definitely not. Because again, we all have our biases. We all have our blind spots. We all have parts of our shadow that we're just not aware of. Okay, number 2. What areas am I dishonest with myself about? I would say do them both, okay? And what are my self-deception habits in regards to where am I dishonest with myself? What areas do I tend to give myself comforting lies? Sorry, I'm laughing because sometimes I'll get clients where I can tell that being honest with them is very difficult, and I just tend to be very direct and very honest, and so I've been known to ask people if they want me to tell them what I really think or if they want comforting lies. Reactions to that question are generally quite interesting. I've not yet had anybody tell me that they want comforting lies, but I have had many people pause and think honestly about it. Okay, and lastly, why am I this way? Why am I really good at being honest with myself, or why am I not so good at being honest with myself? What has shaped me into being this way? Good shadow work is often about exploring the things and the events that helped to shape us and made us the way that we are. Okay, let's get into this topic. I love this topic. I think it's an important one. As I mentioned before, I don't think anybody talks about this. And So I'm going to break this down. Now, when it comes to positive selfishness, think of it this way. There's a form of being selfish that is positive. It's good for you and it's good for the people around you. It's good for the world around you. When you're a better person, then you're a better person in society. You're a better in your relationships. You're a better employee. You're a better parent. You're a better friend, etc., 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 because you have taken good care of yourself. Okay, what I'm talking about is like taking good care of yourself. Maybe it's a self-care route. Maybe it's a self-love route. People have a hard time connecting, I have found, to ideas and notions of self-care and self-love. They're really abstract. It's usually vague. It's really nebulous. People are like, oh yeah, I hear it, but I don't understand it. I don't know how to put it into practice. So that's sort of what we're talking about. We're going to talk about positive selfishness, meaning that when you get older, you just need to mature, right? I have personally found, I look out at the world and I see the problems that we have. I see this free fall of our mental health. Frankly, it just seems like everything is shitty now. Like it's like everything is crap. Everybody's selfish in the wrong way because they haven't learned that you need to be selfish in a positive way. If you haven't taken the time to grow up, to mature, to specifically take on the task of being a better version of yourself, then you're not going to have that, right? Virtues are things that you earn. You have to put the work in, right? If you've never put the work in on being emotionally mature or have a high level of emotional intelligence, right, then you're just not going to have it. They're things that you earn, right? You think of it this way. If you've never learned how to, I don't know, do a certain skill, right? If you've never learned how to cook, for example, you're just not going to naturally be a good cook. You're just going to suck at it. In order to be good at something, you have to suck at it first. And what our modern culture seems to have forgotten is that we need to earn the virtues. The process is going to be ugly. It's going to be clunky. It's going to be messy. And people are extremely judgmental. So people are afraid to try new things and do new things, not because necessarily they're afraid of failure, but they're afraid of the judgments of others. Because when you work to be more self-loving or have more self-respect or building your virtues versus the cheap bastardized versions of them, then you're going to come across as cringy. People will look at your behavior and be like, oh, look, you're trying to do the thing and you're failing and you suck at it. Let's make fun of you. Because that's the emotionally immature world that we live in. And so to me, if you zoom out, you're going to see a world where it's like the lack of good virtues and good values. And instead what we have are the junk values in its place. The junk values are always the cheap ones and the easy ones, the effortless choices, the selfishness and the immaturity. There's just not enough of that going around. I often will talk to young people and they're like, yeah, the world is shitty. And I'm like, well, that's an even better reason for you to better yourself and take the higher road. And often a lot of them have this attitude that, well, when they're less shitty, then I will be less shitty. And I'm like, do you hear yourself? It's like, well, when they're shitty, it's not okay, but it's okay when I do it. You got to be more grown up than that. Okay. Our society, our culture, we are in a desert of good values versus junk values. Too often we're seeing junk values being elevated and glamorized and celebrated. So again, for every value or for every virtue that you can earn, there's a cheap, easy, bastardized version of it that is actually selfish and actually often harms other people and contributes to the greater, right, failing of people in general. Like if we're all failing personally, then we're all going to fail collectively. We have individual responsibility to be just better. And what I see online, right, is like people telling each other to be better. Okay, well, are you, like, if you're out there like, hey, be better, be better, be better, well, are you being better? Because you got to hold yourself to the standard that you hold everybody else to. Okay, this is a grown-up attitude. This is a mature attitude. But I want to give some versions of what I'm talking about when it comes to the virtue or the value and the cheap, easy, bastardized. I want to make sure to swear correctly here. The cheap, easy, bastardized version of it. Rather than having confidence, it's replaced with arrogance. Confidence is a personal thing. It doesn't really involve other people, but arrogance does. Arrogance is, I'm better than you and here's why. Arrogance comes from a place of selfishness and a place of insecurity, and by people who have not put the time in to build their self-esteem and their confidence. Because again, that's something that you have to get your butt out there and earn. Boundaries. We might hear a lot about boundaries. Boundaries are healthy. The cheap, easy version is control, right? Like, boundaries are not exerting your control onto other people. Like saying, you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make your own decisions. You have to make the decisions that I want you to make, and those are my boundaries. Okay, that's emotional immaturity. Okay, that's not boundaries. That's the cheap, easy, bastardized version of the real value and the real virtue. The key being is that you're expecting other people to change when you're not making any changes. I think the same thing is true for discipline. Okay, rather than discipline, the cheap version is also control. Just trying to control others and control things that you can't control instead of putting control over yourself. Right. So really there's a difference here, is like a discipline is an external thing. Discipline is an internal thing versus control is an external thing. You're trying to control other people rather than get control over yourself. Another one would be, happiness. Happiness is super, super misunderstood. Happiness to me is almost like the culmination of all the good virtues and values. People think happiness is just feeling good. You just feel good all the time. That's not been my experience with happiness. But the cheap, easy, bastardized version of happiness is pleasure, right? Just find pleasure. Just use pleasure. There are lots of problems with pleasure. One is that pleasure is subject to the law of diminishing returns. That's where addiction comes in. The more you do it, the less you get out of it, and the more extreme means you have to take to get the same feeling or the same payoff out of it. The return on pleasure shrinks exponentially over time. Happiness is the opposite. When you find happiness and you practice happiness and you build happiness and earn it, it snowballs on itself. It gets bigger and bigger. It tends to expand on itself. And I'm going to tread on some dangerous ground here, provide an adequate disclaimer. This is not medical advice, but a person can earn good mental health. If you're anxious and depressed, as I was, you can learn to not be anxious and you cannot be depressed without the use of drugs and medication. To me, the cheap bastardized version is to just take drugs and expect it to fix your problems for you so that you can dip out on putting any actual effort into it. When you're putting in the effort to build positive mental health for yourself the good way, you earn those values, you earn those virtues, you get to keep them forever as long as you maintain them. You become emotionally immature. You become an adult. Sorry, did I say emotionally immature? You become emotionally mature and you become an adult. And you create this thing called self-efficacy and self-determination, which means that you are in control of your own destiny. By the way, all these things, all these virtues, they feel way better than you think. They feel way, way, way better than you think. I'm going to give one more example here. Strength versus power. I feel like this is a huge one. This one's big. Strength versus power. So strength is the real virtue. You earn strength. You build strength. You are not given strength. Nobody is given strength. And the cheap, easy, bastardized version, you know what I'm trying to say. Version of that is power. Now, all of us can exert power over people that are seemingly below us. Maybe they're subordinates at work. Maybe they're low-level employees at a restaurant or a grocery store, for example. And yes, you can exert power over those people. And by virtue of their crappy job, they are required to grovel and pretend that you're right, just because you're in a position of power, because you're the buyer, you're the one spending money. Power might look like strength. It's not, right? We've all had work supervisors who abuse their power, right? We've all worked under people who just abuse their power as a fake, BS, cheap, easy version of strength. They're not strong. They haven't built strength. They're just put in a position of power and they just abuse it and they mistake that for strength. True power, true strength would be respect, right? And if you're a person who has strength, you're more likely to garner respect from people. And then they will follow you, not because they have to or because they're afraid of you, but because they respect you. It needs to be said, like, that type of leadership it's dead. Like, it is so hard to find these days. It is so hard to find people in leadership positions that have earned respect and have power through respect, and people follow them because they respect them. Now let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty of practicing a positive type of selfishness. I realize that we live in a culture where anything and everything where you are focused on yourself is labeled as selfishness, and we're extremely adverse to being labeled as such things, seen in certain ways, right? We're more afraid of the judgments of others than just about anything. But again, that's part of being emotionally immature. When you have true self-esteem and true confidence, you'll lose that, right? And again, we're trying to build the real virtue here, because when you have those things, you're like, yeah, I don't care what those people think, right? So there's a good type of selfishness and there's a bad type of selfishness. People who have not taken the time to meet their own needs or take good care of themselves, or have taken the time to understand that it's their job primarily to meet their own needs, they're going to look to other people to meet those needs. They're going to be placing expectations onto other people to know what their needs are and to take the time and make the effort to meet their individual needs. That's true selfishness. I might hear from someone, for example, where they might say, well, if you loved me, you would do this. And that demonstrates the type of selfishness where the expectation is placed onto other people that your needs, your wants, your life, your individuality is disposable and you exist to serve me, right? That's true selfishness. That's what selfishness looks like there. So true selfishness always includes other people. It's looking to other people to meet our needs. Positive selfishness is learning to meet our own needs, rather than looking to another person, right, to emotionally uplift us. Learn to emotionally uplift yourself. So let me give some examples of what a positive selfishness practice looks like. And I'm going to talk about these in the context of like, okay, show me where this type of selfishness, I don't even want to call it that. I don't have a better name. I'll need to come up with one, but show me where this type of selfishness harms other people, because that's the implication of selfishness, is that it's hurting other people. I'm going to give some examples. Convince me that this type of selfishness hurts other people. Getting sufficient sleep and rest. How does that hurt other people? Improving your diet. Eating better. Eating nutritious food instead of junk food. How does that help? How does that hurt other people? Becoming more disciplined with your spending habits, right? Being more judicious and discerning about spending your money rather than just blowing it on stuff. Again, tell me, how does that hurt other people? How does that harm other people? If you decide to get into better shape and you decide to work out more, or maybe you want to go outside more, get more sunshine, more physical movement, how does that hurt other people? Maybe you decide to invest in your relationships by just being a better spouse, partner, parent, friend, sibling, whatever, okay? You want those relationships to enhance and improve because Having good relationships is a major life bonus. So how or why is it selfish to properly invest into better relationships? Why is that selfish? Maybe you want to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion is a little bit of a foreign concept for a lot of people. I think we need to talk more about self-compassion. And let's say that you decide to be more self-compassionate and treat yourself better, not be so critical, not be so harsh on yourself. Learn to talk to yourself in a much more compassionate and patient way, and treat yourself more fairly on an emotional, psychological level, rather than just beating the shit out of yourself all the time. Okay, how does that harm other people? Here's another example. Let's say that you decide to devote more of your free time into something creative. Maybe you love music and you just want to get more musical. Maybe, I'm going to address someone very specific in my life, someone very important to me. Maybe you're a very, very talented artist, Steve. Sorry. Speak of the devil, the exact person I was just talking about texted me. Tomorrow's Labor Day. He wants to drive to Wyoming and buy lottery tickets. Anyways, said friend is beyond any doubt the most talented artist I've ever known. And he doesn't use it. And it's heartbreaking because he's incredible. He's just absolutely incredible artist. And I wish he devoted more time to it. But anyways, developing something that you love, a creative art, whether it be like art or music or something, right? And you do that for yourself because those are great emotional outlets. It's a great way to develop your identity and yourself and bolster yourself. Tell me, how is doing that selfish? How is that harming somebody else? Now, I realize that we can stretch it and we can come up with scenarios. Okay, well, let's say that you decide to buy a grand piano instead of paying your mortgage. Okay, yes, that would be taking something that's positive selfishness and turning it into a negative selfishness. So the rule is you may not do anything that takes away from others. You may not dip into your family funds and compromise their well-being to support your own. That's the difference. So there's basically one single solitary rule when it comes to positive selfishness. You may not do anything that directly has a negative impact on other people. You cannot move your child out into the garage so that you can turn their bedroom into a workout room or an art studio, right? Things like that, okay? So anytime that you're thinking about, positive selfishness, that guy in the podcast said that I could do whatever I want as long as it was investing in me. The rule is you may not do anything that infringes, encroaches, or takes away from somebody else. You're not allowed to compromise your family's financial stability because you want a brand new treadmill or whatever. Or like maybe one of those insanely overpriced Peloton bikes. I will say there are going to be people in your life that no matter what you do, no matter how positive your selfishness is going to be, they're going to be down on it. Okay, usually those people are probably pretty narcissistic. Okay, true narcissism and true narcissists are extremely threatened by anybody else bettering themselves or bettering their own situation. They can be extremely skilled at taking anything that you do, no matter how benign or beneficial it is to all involved. If they feel like it threatens them, makes them look bad in any way, or they can twist things around to you persecuting them. Okay, you have to be, because there's a lot of that going around. Okay, be mindful of, you could probably gauge, well, how is this person going to react to that? How's that person going to react to me doing some of these things? If you decide like, I'm just going to eat healthier and that's all, right? And you're going to buy food anyways, but instead of buying deep fried cheeseburgers, You're gonna eat vegetables, whatever. You're just gonna eat more protein, or whatever, fruits and vegetables, whole foods, whatever. And if that person is angry at you because you're eating differently, that's gonna say more about that person. It would be totally inaccurate to say that there are people who are going to be perfectly fine with any level of positive selfishness that you have out there. Unfortunately, our modern society has become highly narcissistic, and there are going to be people out there that will find a problem with what you do no matter what you do. Sometimes I see people on social media where they're saying, oh, I saw this random stranger who was exercising. They're being insensitive to my health and me being fat, and they're being fat phobic by taking better care of themselves. That's just an example. At best, that is emotional immaturity. At worst, that is narcissistic personality disorder. Understand that the world is full of people that will gladly pull you down into the depths of emotional hell with them. They will not hesitate. In some regards, it is their only comfort. It's their only solace. The idea is to not be one of those people. So there you go. That is positive selfishness. Personally, I love this topic. I think it's very important. I think it's highly valuable. I hope you found this interesting and helpful and insightful. Don't forget to subscribe and follow if you have not already. Be sure to tell a friend. Follow me on X. I will do my best to put that link in the description below. And thanks for listening. How are we signing? We're signing these things off to go deal with your demons. You must do hard things. That's it. I swear I'm going to get it. You must do hard things. Thanks for listening. See you.